of the Communist Party, brought to the center of power by Mr. Gorbachev himself, and now clearly in this crisis, or diminishing crisis, completely standing with the people against the men who had challenged Gorbachev, with whom he is cooperating. And not easy to understand, but the Soviet Union, as Churchill said, is one of the most complicated societies on the face of the earth. Standing by as we wait for the President is our White House correspondent, Britt Hume. Good morning, Britt.
Good morning, Peter.
Talk to anybody inside today?
Briefly, Peter, and one of the things that's noteworthy is that this is what the administration had hoped for, not necessarily expected, but thought was a distinct possibility that this might fail. And I might mention that the steps that the President took over the last couple of days did not in any way prejudice the situation so that it would be difficult for him if Gorbachev did indeed come back to Moscow and resume charge. There was a widespread report that aid had been cut off. What in fact had happened is that aid to the Soviet Union had been put on hold pending a further sense of the situation. So the President, I think, and his people feel that he's reasonably well positioned this morning to deal with this development.
The President, Bush, and probably any president would like at this point, Britt, to have some credit for the changes which has occurred. Is there anybody inside the Bush administration who truly believes that they've had much to do with this change?
Well, that's what the President...
Well, I wanted to report to the American people on some of the latest developments related to the situation in the Soviet Union. I spoke at length this morning to President Boris Yeltsin. Call began at about 8:30, and I also talked to Ambassador Strauss, who is now in our embassy in Moscow, in position, and I also talked in the last 20 hours to President Menem in Argentine, with Prime Minister Mulroney, Prime Minister Major, and I will continue these kinds of consultative calls. President Yeltsin was clearly encouraged by the fact that he had survived another night in the Russian Parliament building without a major assault by the forces supporting his coup. He told me that tens of thousands of Muscovites had turned out to help guard the building from attack. Yeltsin said he was encouraged by indications that more and more military units and their commanders were abandoning support of the coup. His building is still surrounded, however, and special troops, the Spetsnaz, are remaining loyal to the coup plotters. It is those troops who are moving to occupy additional sites in the Baltic states. President Yeltsin said that the Russian Supreme Soviet had met and declared unanimously that the coup was illegal and without effect. And he also mentioned the importance of the next meeting of the Union Supreme Soviet, which will be held on August 26th. And they are, his way he put it, they are vigorously trying to line up support for that Supreme Soviet to declare this coup illegal. President Yeltsin said he told the Supreme Soviet of the strong support being given by the United States to those resisting the illegal emergency committee activities, and that the Supreme Soviet received the news very, very warmly. There are at present, according to Yeltsin, flights of aircraft carrying his representatives and also others with members of the emergency committee on their way to the Crimea to meet with President Gorbachev. Obviously, he doesn't have all the details on that, and I won't be able to fill you in on any details on that either. President Yeltsin said he was prepared for all contingencies. He thanked the United States profusely for its support, which was making an important difference, and asked that we continue to stay in touch with him, which we will do. Ambassador Bob Strauss, who had just arrived, gave me a rundown on developments in Moscow, which paralleled those of President Yeltsin, the reports he was getting there. Overall, while the situation remains highly fluid and uncertain, I think it is safe to say that the situation appears somewhat more positive than in the earliest hours of this coup. And so I will stay in touch with President Yeltsin, hopefully at some point be able to contact President Gorbachev, which we still are unable to do. But I guess I would say to the American people, these developments are positive.
Mr. President, this hardly sounds like a declaration the coup is over. What can you tell us, based on your conversations with Yeltsin and any other information you got, about the status of the coup plotters, whether the emergency committee is still in control there, and the whereabouts and the condition on President Gorbachev?
We don't know. We have all kinds of rumors. We have all kinds of raw intelligence coming in. But Norm, I think it would be a big mistake to add to the rumor mill. We simply don't know. Yeltsin tells me that he thinks 5 of the coup leaders have left Moscow, but he, I think, would be the first to tell you that he is not totally certain on this. He also feels that Pavlov is in the hospital, and but we can't confirm it, and therefore it just, there's so much rumor and speculation. I want to try here now to avoid that as best I can.
Do you know who's in control of the Soviet military right now, and were there any Western diplomats on these planes that are supposedly headed for the Crimea to meet with Gorbachev?
Well, there were rumors about a flight that was taking some Western diplomats from the embassies there. I talked to John Major about that, but there's no evidence that when I talked to him, which was 15 minutes ago, there was no, he had, in fact, he'd confirmed that the plane had not left. And yet rumors had it that they were on their way. So he had just talked to his emissary who was going to be on the airplane.
Mr. President, have you tried to reach President Gorbachev since yesterday?
I haven't tried to get a direct phone call to him personally, but I'll keep trying.
If the Soviets survive this constitutional crisis, would you be more inclined to provide direct economic aid to their economy, which will be in no better shape?
We will look at it. The G7 took action on that. We will continue to do what both Gorbachev and Yeltsin want, and that is to provide the kind of aid that the G7 said they would provide. And we will certainly, if things work out in a satisfactory fashion, get back into the business of furthering the economic recovery, certainly. Yeah.
Could you elaborate a little bit on what you said about these special forces troops? The impression seems to have been that these were troops that were leaving the city, that was a positive sign. Is it your understanding?
Well, there are 2 different groups of them. One of them is the airborne forces, and I believe that the airborne commander has come over to the Yeltsin side and pulled his forces back. The other are Spetsnaz forces, which are the highly disciplined forces who answer to Defense Minister Yazov, and apparently they are still under command of Yazov, and they have not come over to the side of democracy and freedom.
So is Yazov in charge, is still controlling the military?
Well, it's very hard to tell, but according to Mr. Yeltsin, I've told you just exactly how it is working as of right now. I would say that he, as far as what Mr. Yeltsin knows, which is what I know, that the defense is not over on the side of Mr. Yeltsin at this point. Yeah, we're going to work our way right down here.
Mr. President, with Boris Yeltsin anchoring Democratic opposition to this coup, where does that leave him if things do in fact resolve themselves satisfactorily?
It leaves the world looking at him as a very courageous individual, duly elected by the people, standing firmly and courageously for democracy and freedom with enormous stature as a result of that.
Would that change the U.S. approach toward Mr. Yeltsin in any way?
The U.S. approach towards Mr. Yeltsin, as you know, is to be supportive of those who were elected. Ever since he's been elected, he has received total support, and before he was elected, he was received properly. And but I must say, in terms of the respect level, I will join others all around the world, not just politicians or elected leaders of countries, in saying that he has shown tremendous courage. And the people appear to be rallying behind him. And as I said earlier on, to some skepticism, 48 hours ago or more, that, look, all these coups don't succeed, and democracy, once unleashed, is a pretty powerful force. So I think he will have a well-earned stature around the world that he might not have had, that he was on his way to having, but might not have fully achieved before all this happened, provided it works out the way certainly the United States wants it to work out. But it is too early to declare these matters over. I don't want to be a part of that.
How about Mr. Gorbachev's position, sir?
Well, who knows? I mean, we can't even get in touch with Mr. Gorbachev, but Yeltsin is strongly support him, and so are we. He was constitutionally empowered, and that's the point here. And every time I talk to Yeltsin, or both times I've talked to Yeltsin, he makes this point of strong support for Gorbachev. Yeah.
President, are you planning any additional steps today, and have you given any additional instructions to Ambassador Strauss about what he should do?
No, he will be in touch with me probably later today, and in touch with the Secretary of State. I'll be I missed a call, I think, from Jim Baker a few minutes ago, but he's over in Brussels. He will have met with the NATO leaders. I expect we may see him up here tomorrow, and we can get a little more detail out of that one, but I don't know the exact details of the Strauss plans yet. He just got there. He's surveying the situation as I asked him to do, and it's developments are happening so fast that I'll just have to wait and see how the clock runs and what he has to say.
President Yeltsin's reports on the activities of the special forces and other military units, are they mirrored by U.S. intelligence on the subject, or do we have any U.S. intelligence on those subjects?
Well, we have the best intelligence in the world, and sometimes it can accurately predict things, and sometimes it can actually count the beans and tell us the things you're asking about. We have some evidence of force movements in the Baltic area, but I don't want to go beyond that. Yeah.
Mr. Bush, when you say that Yeltsin says there's a delegation from the Russian Republic en route to the Crimea hoping to see Gorbachev, what is your understanding of what they hope will happen? Do they want to bring him back to Moscow?
Absolutely. They want him back in power. He was constitutionally put into office, and they want to have the law fully observed. So they would like to see that, and they would like to see him in there unhampered by the illegality of the coup.
Can you give us any sense of whether they think that will be possible today, tomorrow, anytime?
No, I can't, because he was understandably vague as to whether they would get to see Gorbachev. He gave me the names of the people that were on the flight, which I'm not going to give because I think that should come from over there.
Mr. President, given the way the world, if you will, is wired for sound and pictures, it's conceivable that Gorbachev is hearing you right now,
I hope
or
so.
will. Since you can't get through to him on the phone, what would your message publicly be to him?
I would say stay with your principles, stay with your reforms, stay with your commitment to democratic process and constitutional law. Stand shoulder to shoulder with Yeltsin, as you have been, in seeing the evolution of democracy and perestroika and glasnost in the Soviet Union. And knowing Gorbachev, I'm convinced he will. Knowing what the objectives of the coup plotters must be, I would expect they'd be trying to get him to do something else.
Sir, in your communications with the Soviet Union, have there been any assurances to the U.S. at any level that the Soviet nuclear arsenal is safeguarded, that someone can't get their finger on the button?
We see no reason to be concerned about that. Our people are taking a hard look at that all the time.
Sir, I know you're glad to hear Boris Yeltsin say that American support has been very helpful to him, but in fact, you've talked about the limited impact the U.S. can have. Your aides to talk even more starkly about how little impact. The limited economic aid we have, cutting off cultural exchanges. Is that the sort of thing that would have any impact on people, these conservatives who are desperate to stay in power? Do you think you've had any impact?
Yes, I think I would simply go by what Mr. Yeltsin says. And the statement that I made yesterday, he was profuse in his gratitude for that. And it's not just the United States, but we are the United States of America, and thus with a disproportionately loud voice in matters of this nature. But, John, all I can tell you is what the man says. I'll tell you what I said to him. I said, now, would it be helpful to have another statement along the lines of the ones I made yesterday? And he repeated, yes, yes, yes. It is very important. And so, you know, there's some people in this country from one side or another of the spectrum that we have that say you ought to be able to wave a wand and solve a problem of this nature in the city of Moscow instantly. That's not what you can do. But what you can do if you're president is put the full force of the American people behind, emotionally, morally, behind the democratic forces. And that's what I'm trying to do. And apparently, according to Mr. Yeltsin at least, and I think others, that's what we should be trying to do.
Sir, these are pretty hard-boiled characters
Yes,
who
they are.
plotted this coup, and moral pleas to them probably have very little impact. Do you think the fact that they fear this economic aid being cut off, not only by you but by the EC countries, do you think that's the sort of thing that has an impact?
Well, I would think it would have, or I wouldn't have, I would have done it anyway, but I think it would have. Yes, John, they've got economic problems. As you know, some of their first decrees where they were going to put food on the shelves and do something about medicine and do something about energy, but as they see the reality of the world, they are going to need the help of the outside world. And when they see the United States and they see the European foreign ministers coming together, all saying they're not going to have business as usual, I think it does make an impact. And so that is one thing that can be done.
Cause the apparent split in the coup plotters?
No, I think what caused the current split is the coup plotters is, and this is pure conjecture, is to some of them realizing sooner than others that they may have bitten off more than they can chew here. But time will tell on that one. And again, I don't want to be proclaiming this matter solved. I will say that once again that I am pleased it is moving in the direction that it appears to be moving. But they've got a lot of troops. They got a lot of force. They got a lot of people that look at these matters in a very hard-line way. And the one thing I don't want to do is inadvertently contribute to their will and their resolve. But I think some are flaking off because they think that they've gone about it wrong. Yeah. Well, no, wait, no, I've already had one from you. Yeah. I'll be back, though, Norm.
Assuming that President Gorbachev does recover his authority, how will this affect his ability to keep the Soviet Union on a stable path? Will he be strengthened by it or weakened?
I would say that again, a little hypothetical for me to get into, but given Yeltsin's support for him and given the respect and that with which he's held by leaders all around the world, and that has certainly not been diminished by this at all, he will still be a force to be reckoned with. And again, they can sort out inside their own matters. But what will be filtered away should Gorbachev be reinstated, as we hope he will be, what will be filtered out will be the fear of a right-wing military takeover, because the people will see that the power of the people to stand up against this illegality.
And the markets have been unstable. Do you think that if this crisis should be very long, there could be a threat to the U.S. recovery?
It's too hypothetical, but I think the answer is no. But you have to define long as something like that. But anytime you have a conflagration of this magnitude, there are going to be some speculative losses. But the underpinning of the American economy is still pretty good, and so I wouldn't predict the kind of deleterious effect that the question, at least to me, implies. I'm in trouble here. No, I'm out of here.
Are you going to try to reach Gorbachev?
We might give that another shot.
Will you try to send anyone to see him?
President Bush at Kennebunkport in Maine saying he'll take another shot at trying to meet Mr. Gorbachev, who is still at his vacation home on the Crimean Peninsula in the Black Sea. Mr. Bush saying that he has not been able to reach Mr. Gorbachev, though he has had another lengthy conversation with Boris Yeltsin, the president of the Russian Republic. In fact, President Bush said this morning, I know what Yeltsin knows. And what you hear there in the last few minutes from President Bush is caution, a general feeling that things are going in a very positive direction, but really, in essence, quoting Mr. Yeltsin in Moscow, saying the military threat is not over, that while some of the airborne troops have been withdrawn from Moscow, have been ordered to withdraw from Moscow, there are other forces still loyal, apparently, to the defense minister, Dmitry Yazov, who are, in Mr. Yeltsin's view, as interpreted by the president, still uncertain. 8 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast, in case you're just getting up, the Soviet news agency now says that the emergency committee, the coup plotters, the men who mounted the coup against Mr. Gorbachev, has been disbanded. And according to the chairman of the defense committee in the Supreme Soviet, two of the members of that committee, Dmitry Yazov and Vladimir Kryuchkov, who's the director general of the KGB, are now on their way to the Crimea to see Mr. Gorbachev. And there is a fascinating quote from the chairman of the Parliamentary Defense and Security Committee. He says, the committee, we're talking now about the coup plotters, the committee no longer exists. The members are on their way down there to apologize to Gorbachev, or whatever they have to do. I don't know for sure what will happen, but wouldn't you like to be a fly on the wall if Mr. Kryuchkov and Mr. Yazov and Mr. Gorbachev are all in the same room in the next several hours? Now, because the president, quoting Mr. Yeltsin, continues to talk about the military threat and make the point, in Mr. Yeltsin's words, that it is not over, we want to go to Sacramento, California this morning, where we are joined by